Hello, welcome to Franchise and Lowe's Pitfall, which covers the entire Pitfall series as engineered by originally David Crane for Activision and Atari, all the way up to what I consider the final Pitfall game, Pitfall: The Lost Expedition on the Game Boy Advance and the consoles. It's a series that's relatively inauspicious given its importance, and I hope to get into that a little bit, but mostly I just want to have fun because I kind of dig these games. Some of them are kind of crappy, but they've got an ethos that I really like. They've got a vibe I really enjoy. It's that kind of Indiana Jones, go for broke, all or nothing kind of vibe, and a couple of these games, in my opinion, are genuinely excellent, and you should definitely play them. So let's just get right into it. Let's just dive right into, I guess, the pit, so to speak.
Just last night, I was lost in the jungle with Pitfall Harry, surrounded by giant scorpions and man-eating crocodiles.
Well, Harry and I just grabbed the van, swung through the trees, and over the tar pits and found the jungle treasure. It was really neat.
If you haven't met Pitfall Harry, you're missing the year's most incredible video game adventure. Pitfall for the Atari 2600 and in television.
Since I met Pitfall Harry, no other man will do.
Pitfall, designed by David Crane for Activision.
Pitfall, released in 1982 for the Atari 2600 or VCS, is a sort of inarguably important platform game. It predates Super Mario Bros. Obviously by about 3 years, and it does quite a lot with the extremely old and frankly decrepit Atari 2600 hardware. Now, don't take that as an insult. I actually really love the Atari 2600. I think it's got some absolutely killer games on it. Most of them are made by Activision, as is Pitfall here. Pitfall, because it's got an exclamation mark, you have to say it like that. Pitfall! Yeah, you take control of Pitfall Harry, and you go on a quest that seems to never end. I don't know if this game has an end, because I've never finished it. It has a 20-minute time limit. And you can make your way either left or right, crossing a number of different screens, either underground or sort of overground. Going underground is a bit risky because sometimes you'll get walled off and have to retreat, and there's scorpions down there, which are the biggest enemies, so the hardest thing to jump over. There are snakes on the upper level that are quite hard to jump over as well. The enemies, apart from the scorpions and these sort of rolling logs, the enemies are all stationary. The most iconic thing is the giant pits that open up and close, but they're quite easily avoided. They're usually combined with something else to make it a bit trickier. But there's a segment where there is a large body of water with 3 crocodiles in it, and you have to jump on the crocodiles' heads. When I was a child, I had this game on something called a TV Boy, made by Systema. It was a old kind of piece of shit, dodgy, hooky piece of hardware that was loaded with 128 Atari, what I later learned were Atari 2600 games. They all had different names. They were all wrongly named, and Pitfall was called Forest Walk, which is like, fair enough, that it is a forest walk, isn't it? But that's what I used to play it on. This shitty little D-pad and a massive fire button gave me a taste for this system. There are some games on that I really still want to play sometimes. I might do a video about it sometime, we'll see. But the point is, Pitfall is great. It's a very, very cool game, one of the best 2600 games. It's not my favourite. My favourite's probably still Keystone Capers, but yeah, or Frostbite, all Activision. Activision were the absolute kings of this system. Pitfall, get it played as soon as you can. It's still fun, I promise you that.
It's you and Pitfall Harry together again.
Rhonda! She must be dead!
In Pitfall 2 Lost Caverns.
Oh, electric heels! Where's Rhonda? Not bats. Amazon frogs! Oh, dead end. A balloon. Gold in the Raj diamond. Condors? Feet don't fail me now. Which way do we go?
Pitfall 2 Lost Caverns. Explore David Crane's newest from Activision.
Pitfall 2, The Lost Caverns, is actually one of the final Atari 2600 games brought to market in 1984, because the machine was sort of on the wane by then. But as a result, it's a ridiculously advanced for a 2600 game. I can't think of any like this. It had some sort of custom chip in there to improve the music, because it's got. I mean, the music is shit, but like, it's fucking amazing for the Atari. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've never heard that kind of thing in an Atari game before. It's actually kind of funny. It's almost like an early version of kind of dynamic soundtrack, because like when you pick up a gold bar, for example, you get this kind of jaunty, upbeat little tune starts playing. If you get killed and have to go back to one of the continue points in an Atari game, can you believe that? But when you get killed and go back to one of them, you get this kind of low-key version of the theme play, like a sort of you've just fucked up kind of version. It introduces a lot of elements from the later games, characters and stuff. Quick Claw is a character who keeps coming back. You know, I kind of struggled with it, because it's like a sort of... I was about to call it a less polished version of Super Pitfall, but that's astonishing, because no, Super Pitfall is Jank City, we'll get to that, but it's not a game that I feel has the arcade compulsive nature of the original Pitfall. I think it does sacrifice that, but it sacrifices it in what is really obviously an extremely accomplished way. It's just not to my personal taste necessarily. I prefer Super Pitfall, which I'm going to get to now.
Nice. Fucking beautiful. The first ladder you see drops you into a pit where you get killed by a bird or a bat, whatever it is. And even if it wasn't there, I'd fall on the spikes. So it's basically death insurance. Let's put every kind of obstacle we can possibly think of in the very beginning of the game. You know, I'm disappointed. Couldn't there have been lava on top of the spikes with fire sharks swimming in it? Couldn't there be more spikes coming from the sides ready to close in and squash me while stabbing at the same time? How about some laser cannons and upside down volcanoes? You want to be even more efficient? Why even have the ladder? Why not just start the game falling down the pit? Fucking assholes.
Super Pitfall 1986 for the Nintendo Entertainment System, and it is... oh, it's quite a thing. Before I did this recording, I played through this game. And I'm not going to pretend I didn't use a guide, because to finish this, you need to draw a map. You need to map out everything. You need to basically jump around in random spots, because there are so many items that are just invisible until you go to certain spots and jump, which is it's simultaneously vile and very me. Like, I really have kind of a soft spot for this game. After playing it with a guide, I do not recommend playing it without a guide, except maybe once or twice to get a feel for how utterly ludicrously challenging it actually is. The actual moment-to-moment platforming, enemy avoiding, isn't that bad. It's more the fact that it's just this huge, baffling, open gauntlet of stuff to avoid, and things that you need to memorize. You need to know exactly where each item is. You need to get the items sort of in the right order. And then once you do finish the game, it essentially gives you a remix. There's another quest afterwards, and that's kind of cool. But finishing the first one, I'm trying to think about how this would have been received back in the day, and were this game popular, which I can only imagine it wasn't, you would have people in the playground sharing, you know, oh, I found out where the diamond key is, I found out where the heart key is, I know where Quick Claw is, I know where the key to rescue Quick Claw is, because the game meant telling you, unless there's some kind of hint that I missed, the game meant telling you. I thought, presumably, that certain dead ends that looked conspicuous would be the places where items were hidden, but they're not. There are a few conspicuous areas like that, but nothing that's, I would call it a gimme. The goal is unclear, the way that you reach the goal is unclear. There are hidden warps you have to take that require jumping into certain walls that give no indication that they're going to warp you. So, you know, it's kind of a angry video game nerd game, but because it's me, I kind of had fun with it, because I could sidestep all the shit by reading a guide, which I cannot recommend enough. And when you know what to do, all that you focus on is the kind of the vibe of the game, and I had fun with it. I enjoyed myself. What can I criticize? Everything, but the music, such as it is, it has like one tune, and it loops, and it's really short. So if you are going to play this, I would strongly suggest, I don't know, having some kind of MP3 on in the background or something, because the music's going to drive you absolutely fucking crackers. Yeah, it's an alright... Okay, it's a terrible game, but I like it anyway. Alright, cheers.
Introducing Pitfall, the jungle adventure video game from Activision. Just a reminder, not everyone wins. Pitfall, the Mayan adventure for Sega Genesis and Super NES. From Activision.
Pitfall, the Mayan adventure released in 1994, follows that wave of heavily animated platformers in the wake of the Disney games such as Disney's Aladdin, Jungle Book, etc. But Pitfall, the Mayan adventure for the Mega Drive, Super Nintendo, Jaguar, everything, every fucking system, 32X, Mega CD, which is the second best version, and most importantly Windows 95. I'm not going to pretend there isn't some nostalgia in my love of this game. It was one of the first games... No, it was the first game that I played on a Windows 95 PC. I bought it from Hamley's Toy Shop in London on a budget label, I believe, and I loved it to death and still do. I think this is a fantastic platformer. I think it's the best of that type for the Mega Drive and the Mega CD and etc. The PC version is the best because it has all of the enhancements and none of the drawbacks. That is to say, the Mega Drive and SNES versions, while enjoyable in the Mega Drive's case, not so much the SNES, and I'm not just being tedious, it actually is a kind of a little bit worse of a version. While those original versions are okay, it's the CD versions you want to keep your eye on. The Mega CD version has the heavily dithered graphics of the Mega Drive game, which if you're playing on a CRT works. If you're playing on anything else, which let's face it, you're probably not, it's a little bit problematic. But the 32X port runs at a atrociously shit frame rate. I mean, it's okay, I guess. It's acceptable. But you really don't want to play that version when you could play the PC or Mega CD one on emulation. The PC game is surprisingly not that hard to get running on a modern system. DM me, I'll help you with that. But in my opinion, the game is worth playing. And rather than babble on about versions, I'm going to try and explain why it's actually good. Level design is just... Every single level is just an absolute Aladdin's cave of shit. Like, there's hidden stuff everywhere. There's a sort of secondary quest throughout the game to collect the letters that spell the word Pitfall, get them all, and you get like the kind of you did it, well done sort of an ending. Though the standard ending to this game is great as well. It's got one of the best endings in 16-bit gaming in my opinion. It's just a very funny meta joke at the end, which I'm not going to spoil. Yeah, total love for it. When I replayed this recently because I did a feature about it in Retro Gamer magazine, which will be in the next issue out in October, I think. And in the course of doing that, I replayed the game several times to remind myself what I liked it, what I wanted to say about it. And I found this is a game I've been playing since I was about 12, I'd say, and I found multiple new, interesting, well-hidden, non-bullshit secrets just from exploring the game again and again. I never get tired of it. I can sort of see why it might frustrate some people because it does have that heavily animated thing. Pitfall Harry Jr., the character you play as, has got a lot of weight to him. But I think it all just works. I think he's got the perfect sort of move set with the multiple weapons the boomerangs you can throw and catch again that do heavy damage. Those are cool. There are lots of opportunities to get one-ups and secrets and stuff. It's challenging, other than the PC version, there isn't any way to save your game, I believe. So on the Mega CD, you're kind of lumbered because not only are there extra levels, it's also not a short game, really. But it doesn't tire. Like, they keep coming up with new, interesting, cool platforming ideas that actually work. I don't know if you've played the game Maui Mallard, starring Donald Duck, Cold Shadow or something it's called. It reminds me of that, because that is a game that's incredibly ambitious with new ideas, but it doesn't execute them very well. But Pitfall is perfect. Like, everything you'd want to do in an Indiana Jones-like game, you get to do here. They just nailed it. They nailed it to the wall. I love it. I think it's fantastic. Your mileage may vary, but you'll never take my enthusiasm for this game away from me. I mean, I'm still going to be playing it in 10 years' time, I expect, and probably finding new stuff, because they put the work in for this one. Because that's what they used to do. They used to put the work in, and they stopped doing it, and that's why modern gaming is a load of old shit, and I hate it. Bye.
Ooh, shiny. Huh. Huh. It's showtime. Huh.
Pitfall 3D Beyond the Jungle was released in 1998 for the PlayStation or PS1. It is a step down from the Mayan Adventure, but it's sort of a continuation of its, I guess, ethos, because there is a vein of humour running through this game that kind of makes it a little bit more palatable, because while it's not a bad game, it's quite lacking. For 98 on PS1, I think that it could look a lot better than it does. The character models and the enemies, for example, look some of them look kind of atrocious, and I'm not, well, actually, I was about to say I'm not really a graphics guy, but I kind of am. I think they are the most important thing about a game. That doesn't mean that a game that sucks with good graphics is worth playing necessarily. I think, we obviously with visuals you set the tone for everything, so they are ultimately the most important thing about a game. They have to match the game feel, they have to match the game vibe, I guess, is the stupidest word to use. But what you've got here is an interesting crossbreed of 2D and 3D platformer. It's very, it's kind of linear. There are branching paths and stuff, but they usually lead back to the same spot to get like 4 pieces of a key or something. It has the elements from Mayan Adventure. It has your vine swinging, you've got your rolling logs, you've got your sort of opening and closing pits, and there is a decent amount of exploration with kind of a nice line. And I know I always go on about these, but there is a nice line in Secrets and Hidden One-Ups back, when games had things that were worth finding, worth the effort. Sorry, I'm whinging again. So I do like this game. I have a soft spot for it. It's very clear that effort and care has gone into its design. Unfortunately, fundamentally, it doesn't feel great because it's quite ugly. The performance isn't very good. And the perspective, the mixture of 2D and 3D elements is genuinely quite confusing and difficult to deal with. I like this game. I like the fact that it presents a real challenge, but it's a big step down from Mayan Adventure, unfortunately. It's a valiant effort, I guess. And I wouldn't say don't play it. I'd say it's probably about a 6 or a 5. It's very average. It's fine. You'll have fun with it, most likely. But it's never going to be anyone's favourite. There are some cool touches that amuse me, like the scorpions can, instead of stinging Pitfall Harry Jr., they pick him up with their tail and kind of smack him around like in Turtles in Time or something. Anyway, yeah, not great, unfortunately, but the next one is better than this. When I said the next one's better, I'd forgotten that this existed. So here's Pitfall Beyond the Jungle for Game Boy Color, which is it's not very good, lads. It's probably the worst of the Pitfall games that I have played, and yes, I do include Super Pitfall in that because Super Pitfall has the excuse of being old as shit. This doesn't. This was made after many superior platformers had been produced, and it has no excuse for being as stiff and as tricky as it is. Now, once again, because it's me, because I'm Stuart Jipp and I'm Video World AF, I still sort of have a soft spot for games like this. This is a platform game where precision is very important, so the way that you can't adjust your jumps in mid-air, for example, at least not to a great extent, some people would say is akin to Castlevania. But for me, I just think of Manic Miner on the Spectrum, because that's what this game feels like to me. It feels like a big, old microcomputer platformer, because it's so difficult. You die so quickly. The precision with which you need to use your pickaxe attack is so ridiculously... it's so macro, it's so small. It's very difficult is what I'm trying to get at, and I'm stumbling over my words a little bit. I'm going to explain why I'm so upbeat and wired in this episode. I've had some back pain, and I'm heavily fucking medicated, so everything just seems great right now. So I'm in a fantastic mood. Maybe I'm being nicer to this game than it deserves as a result, but no, I kind of like this, but you have to be aware that it stinks. It's really poor. Jumping is really difficult. Grabbing onto the vines is ridiculously precise. It almost feels like pixel perfect. The level design it's okay, but the character needs to be a lot more mobile for the worlds that they've made. So, no, not really worth your time at all, I'm afraid.
Looks like I'll need TNT to blow this out. Maybe I'll find some later and come back. Oops, gotta slide down.
Released in 2004, Pitfall: The Lost Expedition was Activision's final real effort with the series. They did make an endless runner game on phones, but I'm not fucking covering that, it doesn't count. But Pitfall: The Lost Expedition, GameCube, Xbox, PS2, PC, more or less delivers on every front. I don't understand why it's not more regarded than it is, because it's an exceptionally good, beautifully designed platformer with elements that are fresh and still feel fresh. The use of the right stick to control Pitfall Harry's arm, to pick up things, to brandish torches, to scare away spiders, burn webs, that sort of thing. And you know what? I'm going to say it because it's true. You have a water canteen that you fill up at certain points that you can then drink to gain health. So basically, it had Estus before Estus, so Dark Souls can get fucked.
Looks pretty rickety.
I mean, this game, honestly, it has everything. It has loads of hidden collectibles. You can roll into a ball like Samus, or is it Samus? I never know. If I can fault anything, maybe visually. I mean, it's great visually. It's like a consistent 60 frames per second. And it looks pretty lush. Lots of moving elements, lots of life to the environments, but maybe there's a few too many green bits, you know, it's a bit samey. But it is fantastic. It even has a kind of, I'm going to say it, a Metroidvania-ish element, because there are areas you can go to where you're not able to proceed because you need a certain move that you get later in the game, and Harry will say, like, oh, I can't do this right now, but I'll mark it on my map, and then sure enough, he does mark these areas on the map, so you know where to come back to later. It's an incredibly friendly and enjoyable 3D platformer, and to my mind, taking aside your Jacks and your Ratchets, this is probably the best third-party 3D platformer from this generation. I truly can't think of a superior one. It's just very, very fun. I guess people could take issue with the fact that the character designs are not particularly attractive, but they work for the environment they're in. The game does push you, it does test you, it does make you think about what you're doing and how you can apply your moves to a situation. And as a result, it's just a really satisfying little platformer. So yeah, highly recommended. I don't like it as much as Mayan Adventure, but it's pretty much as good of a game, I would say. So you can get it in. You can also get it on the Wii. It was re-released as Pitfall: The Big Adventure, with a really weird shit me-looking cover. But to hell with that. You don't need that. You just need to get the GameCube one or whatever. I mean, they're all the same anyway. The only difference with the Wii one is obviously it's got waggle, but I'm pretty sure you can just use a GameCube controller anyway. So yeah, get it in. You'll have a lot of fun, I promise you that.
I'll mark this on my map so I can come back later.
And last, and kinda least, but not really, is Pitfall: The Lost Expedition, again, except it's for the Game Boy Advance in 2004, made by Taurus Games. And okay, let's be frank with this one. This is extra. Like they went hard at this. The sprite work is absolutely fantastic. The levels look lush. Everything is just so unnecessarily detailed. Animations are just so awesome, frankly. Like when you kill an enemy and they do the kind of Alex Kidd ghost coming out of it and flying off. It's just there was really no need to do that for this little kind of handheld tie-in kind of game. And it's got I don't know if I'd call it good writing, but for a Game Boy game, it has actual writing. The scenario is very silly, and the game is very meta, and the characters are always commenting on how things are happening that aren't really possible. There's a lot of sitcom-y dialogue in it, which your mileage may vary. I was quite entertained by it because it's so rare that you get actual attempts at jokes, at humour, at banter in a Game Boy game like this. Usually the script is quite plain, but this one makes an effort, and I appreciate how good it looks. Unfortunately, it's a bit shit. The level design is a bit tedious and uninteresting. It keeps jumping genres, so it doesn't really do any of them well. It's the whole jack of all trades thing. There are some shmup levels where you're on a hang glider, or at least one, where it reminds me a little bit of Twin Peaks. The enemies are on the ground firing up at you. But, you know, obviously it's not as good as Twin Peaks. It's just not a very good shmup. There are golden idols to find all over the place for sort of replay value, but it's not really hard to get all of them. Other than the script and the visuals, which are excellent, I want to praise the final boss, which is one of the coolest ideas. The execution is not great. I don't really want to spoil it, but it's genuinely sort of dramatic and smart and good villainy going on. Yeah, it's good stuff. It's not a horrible game. I'd give it like a 5. It's very bang average. There's nothing really wrong with it other than it just being a little bit uninteresting. So it's worth a go. I don't think it's too expensive either, and it's probably worth it just to read the script, just to enjoy the jokes and to see the fun visuals that are constantly changing as the genre sort of changes. There are top-down sections that are reminiscent of, say, Gauntlet, but annoyingly, you can't freeze and fire in one direction. You have to move to fire, sort of, if that makes sense. It's like free shot in Gunstar Heroes, so it's hard to get a bead on some enemies when they have much stronger firepower than you. And, of course, by firepower, I mean rather than throwing one stone, they'll throw 3 in a kind of arc, like spread shot. Kind of hard to deal with. But no, this is an alright game. Better than, the Game Boy Color one by some distance. But, yeah, it's also probably better than the port of Mayan Adventure that's on the Game Boy Advance, which is an absolute atrocity. Don't get that. Don't play it on that. But do maybe give this a go if you feel like a little laugh. And that's Pitfall. That's the entire Pitfall series, barring that endless runner I'm not talking about. As much as I would love to see a new Pitfall game, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. With Microsoft acquiring Activision, there is a chance that maybe something will come of Pitfall. But I think that the franchise, quite frankly, just doesn't have pull anymore. It's a bit of a shame, because this series spawned at least one all-timer for me, which is The Mayan Adventure, which I think is fantastic, and The Lost Expedition, I think, is a very worthy follow-up. It's better. It's a decent... Overall, it's a better series than it is a bad series, if that makes sense. It airs upwards. The original kind of primitive games are there to sort of buffer up the later, mostly better ones. In fact, there is something I didn't mention about Beyond the Jungle, the PS1 game, which is that it's voiced by Bruce Campbell, and it's actually quite funny because the quips he says have basically nothing to do with what's going on. So it's like they just got him in and they said, "Hey Bruce, say some stuff and we'll give you like $1,000. And he was like, okay. So it's nice to have him there to elevate what is a mostly quite pedestrian but not hateful game. Anyway, wanted to bang another episode out because I had this one mostly done, and I thought it'd be fun to do a kind of nearly simultaneous release of 2 videos. And Pitfall, a series that I really do dearly love, and I'm patterning certain things I'm making after it. Now, I know this isn't the episode I teased at the end of the previous one, and the one I teased at the end of this one isn't going to be the next episode either. That's not really the idea. I have about 5 or 6, now 7, because I added a new one this morning, ideas on the pot, so to speak, on the boil, and they will all come out. Now, I know I've said this a lot, but I really do want to get back to doing Video World Stuart Jam, even if it's in a very reduced sort of schedule. I want to put out a big Video World thing. My current idea, ladies and gentlemen, my current main stewardship idea is I want to do Stewardship in Video World, the movie, And it's not like a movie, there's no narrative, it's just a really long episode of Video World. Or I could break it up into multiple episodes, I don't know. I just love the idea of saying, I've made a movie, it's games criticism, it counts as a movie, put it on IMDb. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking of doing in the future, but gathering up all the disparate bits I've got for Video World and just, putting it out as one big splodge. I think that would be fun after a long time of having not had that kind of content on my roster, so to speak. Anyway, that's enough of me rambling. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon with another hopefully entertaining episode of Franchise and Lows. And I love you all. Goodbye.